Hey everybody, this is Ripples and Whales. I'm back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a long day here. Been out working on the water today, but I just come in and I feel inspired to create another video. We're going to break the Christmas scene down into 3 parts, and I'm going to start covering the first part today. It is a massive scene, the Christmas scene, and it's so much information to carry across. So we're going to kind of split it down into 3 parts. And I used to do tweet threads on this and kind of get people to try and break down this enormous scene here. And it is an enormous scene because there's so much going on. I sat down and I was trying to figure out, wow, how do I make this into one video? And I thought, right, I'm just going to have to do 3 different recordings and try and piece them all together. And we're gonna go that route with this because it's massive and it carries so much information and so many moving parts. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna try and go through it, and we're gonna bring it to a level that we all can understand and debunk a lot of the mysticism around this, and hopefully make it accessible to everybody, because it took a while to crack a lot of this, and most of my interpretation came on the back of many other smart people, like To the Lifeboat, Sam, Bullzilla, and many of the other community members that had a go at cracking this. Too many to mention. Back between 2018 onwards, all of us were, chipping in and trying to get our various different thoughts and ideas around it. But okay, we're gonna start pulling it apart, and where we're gonna start. We're going to start on the left-hand side of the scene, because the scene moves left to right. Most of his scenes do. Okay, they move in a certain direction. And this is one of the very clever things that cryptographers do in these cartoons. They are layered cryptographically, as I've said a few times now. And it's important to try and peel them off in layers. This is the best way I can say. And also split them down. I've talked before about constants and variables in these riddles. The constants being the colours, the greens, the purples, the yellows, and the constants being the characters, the bear, the king, the stickman, the knight, the arm, and the variables being, the bear's hat, the knight's armour, and what the arm's doing. And then you've got these additions to the scene. Each scene has its own kind of large metaphor and all-round meaning. But this scene was special. This was one very different scene. He never released this onto any timeline. He released this, I believe, back into, I think it was his Reddit back in 2018, December, I believe. I do have a slide there. There we go. There we go, 17 minutes past 12. December the 20th. 2018. Okay, and then this was pulled. I don't know where the link is currently for it, and I can understand why. This carried so much information. It must have flouted every NDA this person ever got put under, because it leaves so much information on the table if you know how to read it. Anyway, enough of me waffling on. We're going to start left to right, and we're going to focus on this part of the scene to begin with, which is the lesson. The Swift lesson, the Christmas tree, the presents, the king, the gauntlet. And the second part we're going to break into the library case, the bear, the regulation molasses, the gavel, and all the library contents. And for the third part, we're going to look at the level playing field, the fireplace, the mantle, the bricks, the knight, and the coin crusher and the coins. And there are a few other riddles, parts we can look at, which is the surround. I think there were actually a few small riddles written in the rugs around there. They've been cracked back in the day. I dare say if you go and have a look on, or we can have a look together, on Bearable Guy's thread. Oh, actually, no, this has been removed. We won't be able to find much from this. But I was going to say, let's go to the Reddit channel. And normally where everything's posted on Reddit, which is in the link up here. If you ever want to go and have a look at stuff and start trawling through, come to Bearable Guys. banner at the top when it decides to load up. And you click Rippled here. It'll bring you to probably this window here. It'll actually bring you to a window before this, which is here. Actually, I'll bring you to this one, and I'll just show you what to do. You can look at all of his posts here, but this is a place where everyone talks about. I prefer to go to Bearable Guy's own Reddit channel. Okay, and then I click Posts, and it'll orientate every one of his posts, and I can click on each one I want to see. It's a better way of organizing things and going through it. These are all Bearable Guy's posts. All right. I need to pull that back down to one of these posts here because I'm going to go over it with you all in a minute. Where are you? Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. There you are. I need to leave that there. That's for our decode now. Right. So, we're in the Christmas scene. Why is it Christmas? And what's going on? What's the idea? Why would this scene be based at Christmas? How do we know it's Christmas? Well, there's bloody Christmas tree first of all. There's presents under there. The bear's wearing a Christmas hat with 3 bells on. All right. What's the premise as the metaphor behind this, firstly? Okay. Do you all remember a couple of Christmases ago, back in 2022, when every other coin had its amazing bull run and Ripple and XRP didn't have a bull run? Okay. Well, that was the Christmas that you didn't get your presents. And the reason why is the king was under the tree with his wrench, slowing things down and stopping price appreciation because of all the resistance he was creating in the industry that was hampering the adoption of Ripple and its plans. The idea of this Christmas scene was to show you that back in the day there would be and this is my own interpretation, okay, you were going to miss a bull run. Okay, looking back on things is sometimes easier to have an understanding, but 2020 hindsight and all that. But the king was under the tree, and a lot of other tokens and things had their Christmas bull runs back in 21, 22. Bitcoin, Ethereum, they all just smashed it out of the ballpark, and there were other tokens like Ripple and XRP and XLM that were left to their own devices, and unfortunately they didn't get the appreciations because the king was under the tree. So we've got this little king here, this dude. Is that him? There we go. And he's got his green eyes with his wrench. In the UK we call that spanner, his spanner in his hand. And we know Bearable Guys referred to the king throwing the wrench in the works multiple times, and he's referring to him slowing the machine down by jamming it up with his wrench, and it's a metaphor for him not allowing the development of Ripple's plans to go ahead because it didn't benefit him. It took money away from him. And who is the king? We don't know, but we do know he was in a very an important meeting. He was actually here in this scene. Have I got this open? I think I have somewhere. Whoa, XRP chat. We certainly haven't been looking at clothes. Where is it? Right, this is the meeting. This was the Swiss National Bank, the BNS meeting back in 2000. When was it? 2018 and 19. Anyway, it was the year that, oh, there we go, 14th of May. I think it was 2019. So the way Brad gave a presentation. The king was in the room this day. And it's not Augustin Carstens, before anyone says. He's here. Someone will eventually figure it out. I've trawled through it. I have yet to find him. But you had all these very powerful people in one room. Very, very, very powerful people. Christine Lagarde, Augustin Carstens, Jeremy Allaire. You had the chairman of the UBS. Anyway, we digress. The king, who is the king of the castle, the king, financial kingdom. This character throwing wrench, and you guys didn't get your presents. But there's one special present that we're going to come back to, and this green, it's called brown paper with a green box. Okay, really important, that one, and it slips under much attention. On the top of the tree, we've got the angel with, I think it's an African symbol for perseverance. I did look it up previously. I believe it's here. It's called the Waba Aba. Is the Adinkra symbol for toughness, perseverance, and resilience. From the West African country of Ghana. There we go. We got there in the end. And so Bearable Guy likes to put the word perseverance into all of his riddles, and the reason for that is that he's telling you that it's going to be a long game. Okay, why would you tell someone perseverance? It's a long game. Persevere. Okay, keep going. Do not lose faith. Do not lose heart. This is a journey. They use ships and balloons because it's an adventure, a quest. If you look at Bearable Guy's reading lists and book lists, and also Satoshi's reading lists and book lists, they refer to the greatest writers of novels who have done major journeys like Jacques Cousteau, Jules Verne, Moby Dick, because they're all a quest, a journey into the unknown. Okay, so perseverance has got nothing to do with Moon. Perseverance has got nothing to do with Ripple making you a shit ton of money. Perseverance is Bearable Guy saying, don't quit. Simple. Okay, that's it. Nothing more. Perseverance. It's there in every riddle. Okay, we ain't finished yet. We've got a long way to go. So the tree's presents. We've got the gauntlet, and the gauntlet, if I've got a picture of it here, is a knight's glove, and the knight here on the right hand side has thrown down his glove, which is what we class a gauntlet, which is essentially a duel, a challenge to the king. Okay, and how do we know like this refers to a challenge to the king? Well, this is what a knight does. If he wants to have a challenge another knight to a battle, he throws down his glove, and it's called throwing down the gauntlet. Okay, so he's challenged the king. It's in the middle of the floor, this gauntlet, and now that the king has to rise to the challenge. What are you going to do? How do we know that? Also, we have references from BG123 in his Lodestar letters, and he talks about, I believe it was Lodestar 1. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. So this is Lodestar 1. It's called Lodestar. It's at the top of Bearable Guy's top of his Twitter profile. If you just click on that, it'll take you to it. And Bearable Guy refers to this in end of year, November 13. Plans had been in place for years. As the process progressed for Ripple, the writing that had been on the wall for Swift for so long, the bore fruit when Brad Glaringhouse threw it down and said bluntly, as he wont to do, well, I think what we're doing on executing on day by day is in fact taking over Swift. Okay, so this is a challenge, okay, and this should give you a big bloody clue here, okay? Bearable Guy is constantly referring to Swift, and we're going to do a deep dive on that in a minute as we go on this first part of the scene. Okay, so he's thrown it down to the king. He's thrown his glove, a challenge down to the king, okay, and the challenge is for Swift. The gauntlet is in front of Swift, S-W-I-F-T. So the king is in charge of Swift. Okay, this is the king's, like, number one earner, I guess. It's the Swift is the heart of the world's financial transactions. It is the atrium, okay, the centre, the hub. Everything runs through it. And Ripple's audacious plans were to take over Swift. Forget CBD season and all that long game. It's a long way into the future. The first thing they're going to sort out is the money transmission centres of the world. And if Ripple succeeds in doing that, and we don't know if it is going to create a massive vortex of demand for this token. That I can promise you. So the knight throwing down the gauntlet in front of the king of Swift. Yeah? This is what this is about. This scene is a total and utter, like, shouting it out in the air. This is all about Swift. The castle was about Swift. This Christmas scene is about Swift. Everything is about Swift. Okay? And you know, it's not a small part of the pie. This I think everyone gets so far ahead of themselves, and myself too. You know, in the community, we're all wanting, the metaverse, the internet of value, the tokenization of assets. We all want smart contracts. What did Ripple do first? They said they wanted to make a dent in the universe. And why do they want to make a dent in the universe? They wanted to do one thing properly. They only wanted to focus on one thing and one thing at all, payments. And once they solved payments, they would move on to other things. They have solved payments and they have won the battle with SWIFT already. We are watching this play out. Back in 2018, we have Brad Garlinghouse in SWIFT interviews talking here. I'll play this first clip for you. Here it goes.
That we're able to address right now, and that's
sorry, it's
just the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order and take advantage.
New world order. Hold on, I'm going to refresh that because it didn't start at the beginning. Give me a second. I don't know why this hasn't loaded up straight away and played.
I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is in fact taking over SWIFT. In that, we've now signed up, well over 100 banks. Some of the largest SWIFT-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology.
Taking over SWIFT in this new world order. He let slip a couple of times. Okay, and we can also go to an interview here.
Today's the day I made 200,000.
Shut up. Adverts on YouTube are just a nightmare.
Now SWIFT, SWIFT is kind of a competitor. It's slightly more complicated than that because SWIFT is really just messaging. When you send a SWIFT transfer, it's not liquidity. You're actually sending bank messages to banks that have liquidity. So to some degree, Citibank and HSBC, really the top two, JPM, those are the top three liquidity banks. And when you're sending SWIFT messages, you're sending messages to banks to release liquidity and making sure the debits and credits match. So to some degree, really boil it down, Ripple's competing with the liquidity of Citi and the messaging of SWIFT, but in one.
Did you hear that? That is the bomb. Okay, let's go back to the scene. Okay, Ripple is competing with the liquidity of Citi. Citi's a monster. Okay, massive bank. And the messaging of SWIFT. Liquidity, SWIFT. And we're going to go into this more in a minute, but I want to lay the foundations as to what this scene is about. The Christmas scene. Okay, this has been a massive battle. These companies do not lie down and roll over. So there's been a massive uphill struggle for Ripple to take market share off these massive legacy institutions. And they are massive. Citibank, JPM, HSBC, he said those are the top three liquidity providers. All right? The massive part of this is that Ripple is challenging two massive organizations, the banking industry and the telecoms industry. SWIFT is just a messaging company. It's just a telecoms unit, but it's controlled and from what I gather, through my limited research on it, through the deep state, and they were using dollars to run this through, hence the dollar sign. Anyway, we're going to go into that more in a minute. I want to come back to that. I want to focus on this little guy here. This is the stick man. And the stick man in this scene has got his eyes wide open and he's cut himself loose. In the previous scene, we saw him, if you remember, we had him up in, we've got Fed Castle Decode. Let's see if this opens up for us today. They blocked my links before, but I think they allowed us through now. Okay, cool. So in the previous image, the stickman was here hanging out the castle window and he was controlled by the puppeteer's hand. Okay, and his eyes were closed and he had all the codes on him. You can see his eyes closed there? Okay. We see this now, here now. The stickman is now eyes wide open. He's got a knife in his hand, which means he's cut loose. Well, what does it mean he's cut loose? Well, he represents all the bloody institutions that are on here. Have a look at that for a minute. The SEC, Fed Russia, World Trade Organization, G20. G20, hey? Interesting. I think that should read BRICS. Then we've got World Bank, SWIFT, UN, IMF. Right, all those corporations were under the control of the deep state. That's what my belief is. And they, during the pandemic and possibly before, those institutions were reordered and probably put in a different, I guess basically they were put under white hat control, if you want to put it that way, or they were reordered so that the people calling the shots weren't the bad guys anymore. Anyway, whatever the reorganization of these entities, they have a massive effect upon the control of the world's money systems, because the world's money transmissions system, Swift connected to all of this, every single bit of it, and they connected through Swift. So you had to kind of rip apart these organizations to get this change of world financial order switched out. And we can see, in the metaphor, this little stick man who's cut himself loose, his eyes now wide open, you've got the strings hanging off here that he's cut, and all these codes on his limbs correspond to these ciphers and deciphers that some clever person, I've forgotten who it is, I wish I could give you credit, because it's amazing how someone was able to put those through the whatever some sort of generator they used to pull them out. Anyway, the metaphor being those organizations were released, and they were cut loose, and they were needed to be cut loose because the king doesn't have control of them anymore. They're free entities, which means that they're able to do more. They're able to expand out to new horizons and allow things like these new changes of the world. Think of everything that's happened since the pandemic. AI has been released. We have alien D-class occurring. I mean, oh my god, have you seen the news lately? It's wacky. It's amazing. We're seeing D-class. I've been wanting this for 12, 13 years. We have turned the corner. And yes, it is so easy to see through the veil right now, and all the lies, and the tide has gone out. Trump has drained the swamp. Love him or hate him politically, he has drained the swamp, and we're starting to see it now. I'm sure you all see. Anyway, that has enabled this to occur. The stickman here, huge part of this scene. Okay, on the stand here, there's two things I want to bring to your attention. Okay, there is on the bottom here, you've got the yin and yang sign. Now the yin and yang signs, that's not the one. That's definitely not the yin and yang signs. Where is it? I have opened it up. I remember. Is it there? Yeah, there we go. So this refers to this part here. It refers to peace and balance. They are bringing order and balance to the system. Okay, really important. So on the bottom of this lesson, okay, and it is a lesson that's been given. I want to reiterate that. There is balance being drawn. Okay, and at the top we can see two die there. I wonder if I've taken a picture of that. I thought I had. No. I thought I had a picture taken of that. Maybe not. Moving on. There's two dice up there. You can see them. I hope you can see them. They refer to the die being cast, and I'll bring that back to you. There was a post by Beryl Guy. I think it was. Was it Lodestar 1 or was it Lodestar 2? Trying to find it here now. Lodestar 2. The die had been cast. I found it earlier on. He refers to it. Is it in here? No. I'm just having a look for it, see if I can find 589. No, we'll go back to that in a minute. Anyway, he talks about these die, the die being cast when Janitor stepped into the Rubicon, and this was this scene. Okay, and it's the Rubicon. It is a metaphor, crossing the Rubicon. It's called in the UK, and Beryl Guy referred to this back in 2018, where he said the die was cast when Janitor stepped into the river, crossing the Rubicon. I bloody thought it was on Lodestar. Certain it was. Saw it earlier on. Anyway, he referred to this crossing of the Rubicon. Is it there? The crossing of the Rubicon. Anyway, it's super important because it means that there was no going back. Okay, the world was changed once they crossed this Rubicon. Once this, I mean, this is Julius Caesar. or was it Genitor and Julius Caesar? These they led the armies, the Roman Empire army across the Rubicon River to another civil war without getting the Senate's permission, and because of that, it caused pretty much civil war, all sorts of manner of problems. Anyway, the dice refer to that. The die had been cast when Genitor. So what it means is it's been decided. Okay, right. So we've covered the gauntlet, we've covered the king with the spanner, we've covered the stick man, we've covered the angel, and this first part of the scene, we've got this box here. Now, this box is shown in the future. You see it, first of all, we can see it here. Look, if you look at my cursor, we've got a little box in the lesson under the word nostro. Everything sits next to what the meaning is. You get a lot of unbearable, guys. So this green box is next to the stick man, and the nostro is getting unboxed. Well, whatever's in it there is getting unboxed, right? Okay. If we go into the future, and what I'm saying about going into the future is we need to look at some of the bears' work in the future sense. And this particular image here by BG123 is for 2026 into the future. If anyone tells you that it isn't, they're full of shit. It's way out into the distance. You see that green box? Okay. He gives you a little hint into the tree, and now it's unboxed. So the presents are out. Okay, but what is that green box? It's the Nostro and Vostro accounts. Okay, he talks about this, and I'll show you where. Okay, I believe it is this one here. No, it's not. Where have I had it? Just 2 minutes ago. Right, 589. 589 was a code for getting ready for what was happening at the end of the year. 589 is coming through. 589 are the Vostro accounts unleashed. Okay, unleashed. Okay, unleashed, unwrapped, Nostro accounts. Okay, see that box there? There. This is the same thing as, this is, I believe, what he's hinting to. Anyway, we're going to come back to the 589 in a bit. So we've got that box that I wanted to cover. So the rest of this part is pretty much self-explanatory. There's an Italian boot on the tree and a few other small things, but I think it's time to just checking my list here. Yeah, we've done the King's Ranch tree box. Okay, we're probably going to go and look at this main Christmas scene now. So, where are we? Let me just find it. It's that one. Right, the lesson. Okay, before we move too far on, I wanted to understand what is this? When I say refer to the lesson, what am I referring to? Why is the bear giving a lesson? Okay, well, it's a presentation, and I believe what he was referring to was in the Lodestar letters. And we've got to come back to a few things because you've got to cross-reference everything. Okay, this is the thing with Bearable Guy stuff. The only way that you can figure things out is by going back through his Lodestar letters. Oh, by the way, look, there you go. There's Ripple and XRP crossing the Rubicon. Swift knows its time has come. So I told you about the Rubicon and the reference to Swift. I just can't find the die as cast. But it is in here as well. There we go, another one. Exactly 1 month after Brad throws it down, Swift CEO Gottfried Lambrant announces he's stepping down. So, end of year 2010, plans have been in place for years as a process of progress for Ripple. The writing has been on the wall for Swift for so long. Finally bore through when Brad Garlinghouse threw it down and said it bluntly, as he does, well, I think what we're doing on a day-to-day basis is in fact taking over Swift. And it's important that we always bring this lesson back to the Swift. I think this is the Lodestar, but Lodestar 2 is the one where we want. Here we go. The BIS meeting of May 2019 was the day that Ripple crossed the Rubicon. Excuse me. Crossed the Rubicon. The old kingdom was begrudgingly facing the fact it had to change. The king, who is not AC, was in the room that day and was quite perturbed. Okay, remember I told you was not in the room that day and we referred to a meeting? It's this meeting. This meeting in the BIS. There's a Custom Carson's and he says, yes, we should be open to technology. Okay, so he's referring to this in the lodestar letters. Okay, so the BAS meeting on May the 14th, the day the Ripple crossed the Rubicon. Remember that, it's really important. It was this meeting that we refer to where Ripple made this huge leap, because they connected to all the central bankers, the BIS, the IMF. They got in through the pearly gates. They were allowed into the kingdom. They got into the bloody castle. Okay? And this is what he was referring to. Okay? Do you know that when I'm talking here about the lecture, the presentation, okay? So Brad was giving a presentation that day, and it was the day that they crossed the Rubicon and got into the castle walls with Swift. Okay? Against Swift. And this is what the king was so pissed off with. And this is why on this, if we look at my cursor now, just come up here, you've got this tick. Okay? This is when they broke the castle walls and got in. When Brad was giving his presentation. And he says that the king, who is not AC, was in the room that day and was quite perturbed. Help was needed. When all eyes turned to Lagarde walking in with Brad on her arm, like a prom date, Mizaru was kicked out of the chamber. Now I looked up Mizaru just for my own weird fascinations, and Mizaru was one of the three wise monkeys, and apparently Mizaru he is the one that hears, who sees no evil, covering his eyes. So hear no evil, see no evil, talk no evil. Well, Mizaru, who sees no evil, covering his eyes. And that's quite interesting, calling him Mizaru. Whoever was kicked out the chamber. Because they never looked at what the bad that Swift was already doing. I think that's where he was getting at. I love this. The genius in the thinking behind these posts. And again, if we go back to... Let's get rid of that, actually. We can get rid of that. Where was... This meeting was the turning point for Ripple. And that's what this lecture is. If we look at this is where Brad was giving a presentation. I'll bring you back to that now. It's so important to understand this part of the Christmas scene because it catalyses everything else. And it's worth me spending the time just hammering this home. That this was a presentation. Okay, we'll go back to bearable, guys. Lodestar 3, excuse me. Okay, how could everyone forget about that meeting so easily? The memories of the Denzians of the internet are so fleeting at times. People were always asking me for answers. I can't give them so readily. I can only share some clues and breadcrumbs. Patience, my friends, patience. If I gave you all the answers, where's the fun in learning all that? Instead of answers, let's ask some questions instead. Who finally gave the okay to a serious discussion regards to crypto assets and its future with the central banks of the world? That is that meeting we're referring to. I'm going to put this up here so that you can see it. This is what he's referring to. Who gave the okay for that? Who allowed Brad into the kingdom? Into the king's castle? What news could have been running around? And I don't know the answer to that. Who allowed it? It could be Benoit Cunha, I don't know. Someone high up the chain. What news could have been running around the BIS channels that would have had the kingdom so shaken? Well, we know that was Facebook's Libra and their Calibra project. Yeah. What news? What put them under panic and stress to take action that they needed to make a partnership with Ripple? Facebook. Simple. 2 billion person database. They would have had instant access to the world's population with a banking app. Game over. Banking system dead. They would win the game, along with the rest of the deep state. When will the central bankers finally decide to do what they have to do in order to be not outdone by a multinational corporation, Facebook, that wishes to establish their own cryptocurrency that would circumvent the traditional towers of power? Do you remember the towers of power? Do you remember the castle? East and West Tower? So he's referring to. Here we go. Where was Swift's solutions and presentation at the BIS? So where was Swift? Where was Swift in this presentation? Well, they weren't bloody there. And why was Brad sitting at the table? So what are you saying is that this was the bloody presentation. This is the bear then giving you the presentation of this image above here. The bear. Ripple in there, XRP. And it's so important to see that. But also it runs deeper than this and we'll go in. But I want to bring this kind of interesting thing. The whole background of this scene to do with Swift. And the whole bigger picture of regarding this Christmas image is Swift and the taking over of Swift. And Don't be underestimating the size of this. SWIFT is a 5 trillion a day project. The Nostro and Vostro accounts are a 25 trillion dollar sizable asset. You know, we are talking trillions upon trillions of capital that will need to be shuttled around. I don't know how that affects the price of XRP. I certainly think it'll increase it dramatically in order for it to facilitate all of that work. Right, let's dig in. We've got so much to cover. We're going to cover this and this part 1, and then we'll move on to the other ones. Right, so much to cover here. It's all about SWIFT. SWIFT was the financial engine of the world, and it needed to be swapped out. Okay, it was antiquated. How was the even word? Antiquated? It's old. Jesus, I can't even speak today. And it was corrupt. That's my feeling. And it was using the dollar, which was losing hegemony, and they needed to change things around. The 589, the Ouroboros, refers to death and rebirth. Reset. Yeah? Reset. But it showed the old system was I think I've got it here actually from a quote from something else. This is the Ouroboros. Plato wrote that it's a completely self-sustained system with no need for anything else outside of itself. That was brilliant. I'm going to give the reference a quote and a mention later on. So, a self-sustained system that never needed changing, which was SWIFT. It's above SWIFT. Okay. I talked before in this picture about the colours. The cobalt, the COMEX, the nostrum, and liquidity. Where have we seen that before, my friends? We have seen it here. Look at the colours. The reds, the greens, the blues, the purples, the yellows. Everything carries through. Okay? Why was this image so important here? Nostro, red, cobalt, XRPL, COMEX, gold standard, liquidity. Yeah, liquidity for SWIFT. So it's super important for me to just break down something really quickly for you, is that SWIFT has 2 components. It has a messaging system, and it has a which is just like a text system, a text stack, and that's what SWIFT does. It just sends messages around the planet. But they also have to settle the liquidity of those texts. The texts are kind of transactions, and the liquidity is settled later on. It's, as Brad said in the video that we shared earlier on, is that Ripple is taking on the liquidity of Citi, HSBC, and JP Morgan Chase. Okay, that is the liquidity function in green. Okay, it's also here in the dollars, and it's plus. Okay, the liquidity is what Ripple's product ODL is set to replace, and RippleNet is replacing SWIFT. RippleNet and ODL are the 2 components, the 2 packages that are trying to replace SWIFT and the liquidity providers, and that is the battle. That is the battleground. Okay, it's super important, that. And so we've got Ripple fighting their way through this. Also, you've got Nostro and Vostro accounts, as Greg Kidd in our previous video. If you go and watch this video, it probably covers some of the same stuff that we've covered today. But if you come here and watch this particular video here, BG123 SWIFT, that will help you understand what we talk about. So Greg Kidd talked about the Nostro and Vostro accounts, which have idle money sitting around the planet. The green box used to have some sort of cloud, I think it was, and a code inside there. I think someone put it for AWS in there. It was Amazon kind of cloud services. So the Nostro being unboxed, but the Nostro accounts are tied to this cross-border payments engine that needs to be unleashed. The idea of Ripple taking those and using ODL instead of them is what this image is trying to show you. Cobalt, as I mentioned in the previous video, was a amendment to the XRPL and software, and it was supposed to bring, I think, and I'm not so super versed on this, super smart contract capabilities to the XRPL. Maybe microtransactions and other things as well. COMEX is a 589 is a rule, and yeah, there's like a few ideas with COMEX. I'm not going to focus exclusively on COMEX at the minute, but I can bring up something we brought up earlier on, which is Lodestar 1, Bearable Guy, talked about what this 589 was, and I've mentioned it in my previous video. A lot of people think it's a price. If that's what you think it is, fine, but we can bridge it out more. 589, what a beautiful number. One number that has been spoken about since the first debut, like a cobalt blue shooting star, flying at the speed of light. By the way, cobalt was also a XRPL software amendment upgrade, and it was a super fast one. It was, I think it's changed. It was mentioned there, obviously, cobalt blue there. So oh, sorry, I've covered it. It's brought about great discussion outside of the XRP community. That number has so many meanings and so many reasons behind it. That number, that one breadcrumb, has led to so many discoveries. The XRP is now and what it can become. 589 is a code for what's getting ready to happen. At the end of the year, 589 is the COMEX rule. 589 are the Nostro and Vostro accounts unleashed. 589 is hope and knowledge. Okay? 589 is Swift and all of this. In fact, this is what 589, he was trying to tell you. He's put a code in for everything. It means so many things. And this tick here is really interesting. Okay, look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2026 complete. They got into the castle. That can also mean that part is complete. I've got two feelings on this. One, that on the left hand side of this image here, this 1, 2, and 3, by the end of 23, we'll start to see these things released, the Nostros, and maybe there's going to be software upgrades. We don't know what that might be. And then 24, 25, and 26, we'll have the other part of things taken care of, the liquidity and maybe some COMEX exchange. A really fascinating detail that I stumbled upon was this. Okay, and I've said so many times that my feelings were through the Ripple Riddler picture with his arms wide open on the balloon. I said to you that I felt that the storm was coming between September and March, which is a 6-month window. And I think that the death and the rebirth cycle would occur beneath then. So between September and March, 23 to 24, right? And here he's got the W, which is the 23rd letter of the alphabet, the I, which is the 9th letter of the alphabet, and the F, which is the 6th letter of the alphabet. He's got them with those on. Now, W is 23. Okay, this is just my feelings on this. And we've got I, a red I. Okay, 9 being with number 9 on it, 9 being September, and 6 months later we've got the other, so 6 9 9 6. Okay, and in my kind of, he's got this cross next to this. Do you see how he's left that? So 9 being here, and then 6 months later 3 here. You've got 3 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Some very interesting stuff symbology wise here, and 2023 maybe here. I don't know. This is not a timeline. This is not a guess. It's just stuff that I come across that I think, wow, this is really interesting. And, if we take that and look at it up, this is when Swift has just gone live with ISO in March of this year. Okay, and we know that there's this timeline for ISO integration throughout all of the Swift systems. Okay, and also all the UK, the US, the Asia, the Japanese, they're all on a staggered timeline until 2025, 2026, when all of the FI world, the financial engines of the world, will have to be on board. And Swift will have to be as well. The pointer is pointing at 9 as well. But actually the angle of it points to kind of 10:45, doesn't it? You have to look at everything. There's not one thing that is able to kind of get past us, because you have to turn over every stone with BG123. We've been over the castle riddle, and we kind of understand that it's Ripple entering the King's Kingdom. And so the first part of this amazing Christmas scene is all regarding Swift, and he's going back to the original lessons in that were done. Lessons presentation with the bank BNS, the Swiss National Bank, with Brad, and he was saying to you that this is the day that they got into the King's Kingdom, and it was all about Swift and 589. 589 is the code for Swift, the taking over of Swift and Nostro. That's what that is, and that's the first part of the scene. Anyway, I think we're going to switch gears in a minute, and we're going to move into the second part of the Christmas scene. Right, guys, switching gears up here. We're going to look at kind of the part 2 of this, or the second iteration of this this decode on the Christmas scene. We're going to move to look at the library case. I said we're going to split this scene down into 3 parts: the Christmas tree, the library case and bear, and then we're going to finally look at the calendar, the mantle, the fireplace, the coin crusher, and the tokens. So we're straight smack bang in the middle of this now. So we're going to bring up this part of the image here to super oversee this, and this kind of puts the blinders on for us to focus on this particular area. This was a very clever one, to use a library case as a metaphor. It's the best one I've seen yet. There's not much to mention other than that if you were all familiar, there was a precedent that was set by the library, the token library, where there was a case with the SEC. Okay, and there was a lot of banter going back and forth with library and Ripple, and the library case ended and concluded with library losing its case to the SEC, stating that the crypto company had violated securities laws by selling its native token, LBC token, without registering the SEC. Interestingly enough, they revise the 22 million penalty startup to the library, and 111,000 increased after the courts figuring out the revised costings for everything. Interesting numbers though, 22 and 111. Anyway, the library case has kind of set a big precedent in the media eyes, okay, about how the SEC was to go after unregistered securities, and the library case became a very important and prominent case, especially in the Ripple arena. Everyone had their eyes on that, and it was to do with the library token, as mentioned before. There is no accidents in the world, and Bearable Guy often uses metaphors. Now this is the library, and this is the library case. It would gavel up against the case here, okay? And there's no coincidence in my mind that he used this deliberately to keep your eyes also on the library case, because it was also the wider Christmas scene is all about the slowing down by the SEC of this entire space. It's not just Ripple, because later on when we look at kind of part 3 or part 2/3 in this, we'll look at how the other coins are going to suffer the same fate. So your eyes were going to be glued to the library case, right? And this is the library that we're looking at now. So little connotations that he leaves here and there for you. Anyway, let's have a look at the. So in the library, in this section, we've got the bear. He's teaching a lesson, but the most important thing is he's some of the most important things. He's pointing at a tooth. This is 4th tooth. He's looking across at the lesson he's given, or the presentation, and he's wearing his Christmas hat with the 3 bells on. Everything happens in threes. 1, 2, 3. It's a very sacred number 3. The bear often uses the symbology of sacred mathematics, 369s, Fibonacci, Tesla, vortex maths, whatever you want to call it. It is the universe's architecture of mathematics, and the bear loves to use these 1, 2, 3s. And I wonder whether some very clever cryptographer in the community had cracked a lot of these mathematical problems in the blockchain world using these mathematics equations. We have a lot of mathematicians in my family, and physics professors, and some prominent ones, in fact. And I often wonder whether they used these numerological findings in their coding on the XRPL. Maybe one day we'll find out. Anyway, the library case is also a point in drawing your attention at the information and where to draw your information from. and who is a trusted source and who is not. And if we just zoom in on this, I don't know if you guys have seen this before. If you haven't, you can kind of look that he's got Hodor. Okay, Volume 1. Hodor was an amazing blogger, and still is, but he's not doing much anymore. If we just type in Hodor blog XRP, you can find all of his blogs. There we go. It's Hodor. I think it's some WordPress still. It's fine, I'll agree. So that's one. I think actually his XR community blog is a bit better. It's better laid out. Yeah, this is the better one. You can go through all of Hodor's blogs here. Bearable Guy's pointing you towards these. This I'm going to go over a lot of these in the future. There are some gems there. He's also XRP baby, CKJ. CKJ was given a shout out in the Bearable Guy library. That's like a Hall of Fame thing, you know. Bank XRP. Then you've got BG123 Lodestar 1, Lodestar 2, Lodestar 3, the volume. So there was only going to be 3 Lodestars, he was telling you that. Oh God, I can't even read that. One of the community members will post that below. Bank XRP, I've mentioned before, and there's a few others as well. This is kind of Morse code, I've sensed, you know. You've got the Ukrainian flag here, okay. They knew well ahead of time how this was going to affect things, and I've got a funny feeling that might have been some form of flag as well. You guys can start pulling these apart a bit further to another level, hopefully, but the Ukraine was mentioned there many moons ago, so they must have known that something was coming down the line with the country, sadly. So that's the library. There is more to see in the library. A little bit more. You've got the prosperity symbol, which is no, it's not that. That's the teeth. So this. So in the middle here, you've got the symbol for prosperity. I think it's a Chinese symbol. It's right across the liquidity, and the bear's looking at it. It's you know, and he's 1, 2, 3, 4 between 24, 25. He's pointing out his teeth, if that's what he's trying to tell us. And on the library case, we have the regulation molasses jar. This was an old riddle left in the day, and the lid's got price written on it, and it's got Alien Hills Farm regulation molasses. So, like they were saying, regulation was like treacle. It was taking ages to get through because it was a nightmare. And the reason price is written on the lid is because if we go back to Bearable Guy's early kind of posts on his, this was posted in 2019, August 18th. He's going to show you that, or in August he posts when things are supposed to happen. The regulation molasses jar is going to fall. There's a bear popping through there. Now, when the jar falls, the lid's going to come off and the price is going to go. Now, if we look at the scene, what could possibly make the jar fall? Well, it's the hammer, the gavel. Okay, and interesting 12 there. You know, I wonder whether it's $12 on the first pop. Who knows? But we can see that the gavel. Have I got a smaller picture of the gavel? I thought I got one for you all. Is that it there? Well, it's a very poor rendition, so let's get rid of that. Let's look at this. Can we go? Yeah, we go. So the gavel, got one more, is here, and it's resting against the library case, and when it strikes the case, the jar is going to fall, the lid's going to come off. And so we've got this this case closing at some point. Now, the gavel is next to September on the calendar month. I can bring you guys in a bit further on that, so drop that down. You can see here the gavel sits across to September, and it's above Bitcoin as well, so you know, I wonder what will occur with that. Bitcoin's got a red kind of what would you call it, kind of nail or pin holding it up onto the mantelpiece. That's interesting, and it's happening just in September. I think, you know, Bitcoin's going to get probably favourable regulation. It's hard to say with that, but it's clearly that when some sort of case is closed, potentially, if the regulations are going to come through in August, you've got the gavel that's going to strike, in September. The regulations are going to fall. You probably maybe get settlement, and then off to the races. So this second part of the scene is, he's looking at his teeth in between 2024, 25, pointing at the kind of the full reset, I guess, and the implementation of the SWIFT things. But that's the second part to this library case. There's plenty more you guys can dig into on that with the books and things. I'm sure you'll find more than I have. But just for speed, last thing you've got. If we look at the zoom out a little bit, you've got Bitcoin. I think it's Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin on the furthest underneath the gavel. Now, my interpretation is they're probably the safest because they were. One was a fork. Oh, they both were the forks, weren't they, of the Bitcoin white paper, and they'll probably be treated as commodities. And I think that the further left the tokens in this scene coming are, the likelihood is that the more favourable judgment they're going to be given. That is my feels. We'll go into more stuff. I think that's going to be it for this complete first part of the series. I'm going to put into a complete part 2 for the second part because it's kind of so vast. Yeah, I hope that's made sense so far. Thanks for watching this first part, and I will begin doing the second piece, which is the fireplace, the level playing field and everything shortly, and we'll try and get these both posted up within 24 hours of each other, so you can all guys dig into them. Anyway, I hope that's helped. I hope that's the first part, the first two parts of the scene covered reasonably well, and it'll give you an understanding to this wider Christmas scene and where we are in it, which is where I'm going to go into next. That'll require a little bit more details again. So anyhow, I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're enjoying this kind of mini series that I'm doing. I think it's time that we did this and give you all the information and get it out into the wild. And yeah, to kind of demystify this whole thing, around these riddles, and also to lay a standard down. This is one of the reasons I really wanted to do this. There is so much bullshit around this topic, and it does frustrate me because we'd figured a lot of this out in 2018. It doesn't need to be rehashed. Everyone has their own style. I completely get that, and their own interpretation. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying the people before me were right. To the lifeboats, Sam, he was a genius at this. And he laid a foundation this so strong that it didn't need reiterations. And so I'm just basically reiterating what Sam taught us, and on all the others, CKJ and things like that, who are the OGs in the community. I wouldn't say I'm an OG. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here, and just reiterating what they said originally, so that there don't have to be Chinese whispers in the future. The information is pretty self-explanatory when you do the research to it. So this sets a standard from now on, and a benchmark, a line in the sand, so that poor interpretations and bullshitters in the community don't get their way to kind of over-exaggerate and over-hype you all. And I hope that doesn't sound too harsh, but I think it's important, People in the community have got to have tempered expectations. This is it's a big thing, don't get me wrong, but moonshots and Lambos and stuff like that, it's damaging. It's damaging for people's perseverance. It's damaging for the community. It's damaging for research. It's damaging for BG's work. And so that's one of the reasons why I felt it was so necessary for me to do this. Anyhow, hope you've enjoyed. Sorry about the rant, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Take it easy, all. Be blessed.